Welcome to the SNN.Network Canada virtual event. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Brent Charlton, CEO of EnWave Corporation. Brent, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to present today. For those who don't know our company, I'll provide a quick overview of who we are and what we do, and then dive into some more granular detail in terms of recent corporate developments and guidance for the future here in fiscal 22. So to begin, EnWave is an industrial technology company that has developed a proprietary vacuum microwave dehydration method, which offers significant value propositions, primarily in the food and cannabis industries. However, we are still active in R&D with a minimal amount of resources being deployed into the pharmaceutical sector. Before I continue, I'd like to draw everyone's attention to our disclaimer regarding risk factors and forward-looking statements that may be made throughout this webinar. In fact, I can almost guarantee that I'll be making some forward-looking statements pursuant to future performance for EnWave Corp. So what separates EnWave from other OEMs in the dehydration industry is that we've proven commercially that we have the most reliable and scalable vacuum microwave technology in the world. This fact, combined with our robust experience using this technology, allows for the acceleration of product and process development as we collaborate with the companies who adopt our technology or who are evaluating the adoption of our technology for use. Our tech is protected by almost 20 patents, including both apparatus and process patents, and we have sophisticated know-how, which I alluded to, that we put to work each and every day at our innovation center here in Vancouver. Let's talk a bit more about the technology. When you combine vacuum and microwave energy the right way, that is, you can create a controllable low-temperature drying method that will uniformly or evenly remove moisture from the products that are being dried, enabling users to create precise product outcomes, characteristics that are oftentimes unique given that it is a homogeneous drying process, which is vastly different from the other competitive drying technologies in both of those industries, food and cannabis. And we refer to our vacuum microwave technology as radiant energy vacuum, or REV for short. The speed of our REV processing is much faster than the alternative drying methods. When compared to air drying, we're approximately 2 hours versus 6 to 8 hours, and for freeze drying, 2 hours versus, and sometimes days, 24 hours or longer. As well, we have a reduced footprint, which I'll get into on the next slide. So more specifically, REV dries food products typically 25% less time than the incumbents, and for cannabis, it's even more pronounced given that the room or rack dry and curing method standardized used in industry today can be upwards of 14 days in some cases, whereas we're drying the product as soon as it's harvested within 2 hours, and doing so at a very low controllable temperature, which allows for a higher retention of the cannabinoids and, more importantly, the terpenes, which is quite important for premium smokable use of the flower. I just talked about footprint. So specifically in the cannabis industry, if they can allocate more footprint towards growing more product versus the drying bottleneck, which seems to have been proliferated through the industry, that equals more potential profit for those businesses. And likewise, in the food manufacturing facilities, every square foot counts, and they're trying to build the most efficient and repeatable operations that they can. Albeit we are growing our commercial footprint in the food and cannabis industry significantly. I mentioned we're involved in R&D in the pharmaceutical space, which I would consider blue sky for EnWave. We've proven at pilot scale that REV is far faster than lyophilization. It offers continuous processing, which is different from the standardized batch methods that are being used currently, and increases the uniformity of the drying of the biomaterials while also reducing energy consumption. Merck, our long-standing R&D partner in this space, published a paper last year which pointed to also the efficacy and the repeatability of the process, which competed, or in certain cases was better than the industry standard of lyophilization. So to pursue this commercial opportunity, while again not deploying significant amounts of resources given there isn't an accurate time period for payback, we partnered through a joint development agreement with a company called Gaia Lyophil, who are the global leader in lyophilization equipment, and work now very closely with Merck, our engineering team, and have also engaged several other tier 1 pharmaceutical companies, including AstraZeneca, who we announced signed a material transfer agreement with EnWave this past year to drive monoclonal antibodies, or at least test that. GEA also purchased a pilot unit from us, and now that's been installed and is for use in Germany, not only as a showpiece to walk in and see the technology firsthand, but several trials have already been scheduled for the early new year, and we're hopeful that GEA can steward some of these relationships to commercial adoption, which in that case, GEA would build large-scale machines under GMP certification with their pharmaceutical expertise. We would collaborate on the vacuum microwave componentry of those lines, and then we would get a shared interest in the value of the contracts that hopefully can be secured. So EnWave is monetizing our innovation primarily in 4 ways. First and most importantly, we're licensing the use of our technology or our IP portfolio to food and cannabis companies in exchange for a negotiated carried interest or royalty related to their commercial success. That can come in the form of as a percentage of revenue or a fee per unit produced, or in certain cases, it's time-based. So we'll mark a certain amount of payback we'd like to see in the form of carried interest per annum, and then split that up either on a monthly or quarterly basis to be paid by our partner who are using our technology. The machinery itself we also sell. So the Rev equipment is not free typically. We do make it easy for companies to trial and test the equipment to prove out the value, but once they see that, they do commit in the quantum of between $200,000 US for our smallest unit, upwards of $2 million US for our larger continuous lines. So it is a material capital investment in certain cases. Third, we now offer companies toll or manufacturing services via our Revworks facility, which will be started up in January of 22. We had a few delays there, which I'll get into in a moment, but we're primed to hit the ground running with a pipeline of very interested parties that will use that service to take material amounts of Rev-dried product to market and hopefully prove out business cases, which will encourage them to adopt technology for internal manufacturing purposes. And then lastly, certainly not least, our wholly owned operating subsidiary based in Washington State has been producing a line of consumer snack products, most notably Moon Cheese, for several years, since 2015, had a great growth trajectory until 2019, and then has pulled back in 2020 and into 2021 here. We, in fact, actually restructured the business, which I'll get into details in a moment, and have reset the business for continued growth and prosperity. So I'm looking forward to sharing those details in a moment. So when we look at the market that we're hoping to address in terms of the total value of the products that are being produced, we hone in on the air-dried food market, the freeze-dried food market, and the growing global cannabis market. Each of those sectors are growing, anticipated to be in the quantum of $269 billion of value by 2026, estimated. And so when we think about that number, we're hoping to obviously carve out a significant portion of market share. And royalties, if it's on a percentage of revenue basis, would be applied to whatever we're able to carve out for EnWave's partners using vacuum microwave technology. To date, we've signed 49 commercial royalty-bearing licenses that span over 23 countries collectively. And the majority of those licenses that have been granted are primarily in the food, vegetable, dairy, and cannabis verticals. Our licensed partners include folks as large as PepsiCo, Arla Foods, which is a top 10 global dairy company, recently announced a global strategic partnership with Dole to develop nutritious innovations, Calvi, which is one of the largest snacking companies in Japan and have robust international distribution, and we're working continued with the U.S. Armed Forces to improve military rations. Obviously, those need to be shelf stable and can't be transported using cold chain storage. We also work with a number of medium and small enterprises, and where we're at today in terms of that diversified royalty portfolio growing, we have a number of companies who have bought entry-level machines. They've taken product to market and are on the precipice of making decision points on scaling up their manufacturing capacity. Our business is typically pretty lumpy in terms of when the machine orders come. And so the majority of what we'll provide in terms of guidance and the number of machines we hope to sell should come within Q2 and Q3 of this fiscal year. So moving on to talk about NutraDrive for a quick moment. So NutraDrive really peaked in 2019, as I mentioned, with revenues breaching 29 million, and I was generating in the range of 2 to 3 million in EBITDA at the time. We brought in a new CEO at the beginning of 2019 who started to layer in a lot of expenses in the business, anticipating that all of our customers were going to continue onwards. And one of the primary customers at the time was Costco. 60% of the revenue was coming through distribution in various regions of that business. And ultimately, too many chips were placed on Costco, and Costco went away for a bit, and the expenses stayed. And so we had to step in, and we restructured the business in February of this past year, and hired a new CEO and realigned the expenses to better align with the business size. And also changed some of the strategies rather than purely focusing on the brand Moon Cheese and building that for a potential exit. We realized that there was a huge amount of value to be surfaced by engaging in bulk product orders. So we started that, as well as diversifying the portfolio from simply a one-trick pony format of a ball in different cheese styles to now the introduction of a stick analog, which resonates far better, it seems, with the testing that we've done for consumers, which I'll show you in a moment. And also we're looking at several other healthy snack products to launch through the NutraDrive mechanism, whether they're produced potentially at the Revworks facility or at the NutraDrive facility, given that in terms of our machinery, we have our NutraDrive platforms out in Washington State and the QuantRev platform here in Vancouver. So as we look forward for NutraDrive, what can we expect for the next 12 months? And really is right now, the management team, the sales team, confirming material new distribution for sort of latter Q2 into Q3 of this fiscal year. And we've received some very favorable feedback in material grocery distribution, which we will share the details for in upcoming weeks here. As well, we've gotten back into the Costco ecosystem with a promotion through Canada to start up in January, which will be very important with good margin on that, and also given the opportunity to go back into rotations in certain divisions within Costco. So things seem to be moving back to where they were pre-COVID, and I'm excited about building this company back into a form where we can decide whether we want to spin it out or divest or keep if it turns out to be a cash cow for us. So here is a snapshot of the new stick product, which will be hitting the market in the early new year. We're really excited about this particular product portfolio. We think it has a huge amount of runway. And again, like I said, the feedback so far in industry has been very good. And what differentiates the snack product in the market? Well, it's going to be the only 100% cheese stick snack that we've seen anyways, available to consumers. If we look back at the licensing and royalty business for fiscal 21, which obviously completed in September 30th, through that 12-month time horizon, that's the most licenses that we've ever signed in that time period, with 13. And to complement that, we signed 6 additional evaluation agreements with different companies taking the technology in to develop products and hopefully commercialize those. In regards to the machine capacity, which obviously is a leading indicator for royalty growth, we are also successful in selling 14 10 kilowatts and 4, I should typo on the screen there, 4 larger machines, which some of them have already been installed, 2 of which were for U.S. multi-state operators in the cannabis industry, and 2 were for food companies, one in Spain for cheese snacks and another for avocado snack products to be placed in South America. We believe that within fiscal 22, we have the opportunity to more than double the amount of large-scale machines that we can sell, confirmed. So our target that we've disclosed publicly is 10 large machines, and more than 10, likely around 15, 10 kilowatts should be expected through this year. So Q1, and there's no secret here, it's been a bit slow on news, and please understand that that's not any indication of opportunities lost. It's more so timing of the year when certain capital decisions are made, and those will likely mostly come through, again, Q2 and Q3. We'll take a moment now just to quickly summarize three interesting and material relationships that we're developing, and the first being with Dole. And so this particular relationship has spawned into a number of standalone projects leveraging Rev as a key platform for future innovation. Of course, we know that Rev can produce some very unique snack products, but we're also working on different functional ingredients and addressing the need to upcycle fruit that would otherwise go to waste. And so one of the call-outs for Dole is nutrition for all, and they're hopeful, and we're very hopeful, that there will be material adoption of our technology through the next calendar year, which will allow them to convert product into shelf-stable format to deliver that nutrition to more and more people around the world. Now, another relationship worth noting is with Calvi, whom, as I mentioned, are at the forefront of snacking in Japan and obviously have a great market share internationally. And so they've developed a very premium line of dried snack products and launched that domestically through the use of 3 10-kilowatt units. And we'll be coming to do a line trial in North America on a 100-kilowatt unit to make a decision likely around the Q3 time period. So we're optimistic about them hopefully scaling up their manufacturing capacity. And then longer term, again, given the size of Calvi, hoping this becomes incredibly meaningful with multiple large-scale lines, turning out product and generating growing material royalty streams for EnWave and its shareholders. And the last project I'll call out here, I mean, so we have 49 licenses, but these 3 are quite interesting, as with the U.S. Armed Forces. And so we've been given the indicator that funding has been approved to purchase a large-scale line eventually in 2022. And so that's great to get that information from them. But the other thing is that the capital actually has to get released by the government. So we're waiting patiently for a confirmation of that again next year. And that would give them the ability to produce far more quantity of the 2 products which they focused in on, which is a shelf-stable, malleable cheesecake product. They're also working on a French toast iteration. Again, high caloric content, good flavor and texture for the warfighters that they're serving. And then they're also, as a third sort of auxiliary product, using an agglomeration technology to create bars using Rev-dried, partially Rev-dried fruit materials. So also something to look forward to as we grow our business. So I'll talk briefly about our cannabis development. Right now, we look at the U.S. cannabis industry as the largest near-term opportunity for our business. Our tech has now been proven with the development of what we call Terpene Max. This is a bespoke process of vacuum microwaving cannabis that we have applied for a patent for, and it ensures that the temperature of the drying process stays well below 40 degrees Celsius or well below the decarboxylation point, and allows for a heightened retention of terpenes, as I mentioned, in cannabinoids. And so we've now actually put this process to use on our large-scale commercial lines with 2 separate companies, and the results, again, have been repeatable, consistent, and very high quality. So with these showpieces, these existing lines in place, we've now negotiated referral agreements with these 2 leading adopters and have brought in several companies to look and feel and touch and smell, and are optimistic about converting many of these prospects into full-blown licensees this year to complement our growth in the food industry. You know, the U.S. alone is supposed to make up about 80% of the estimated $21 billion global market. So it makes sense for us, again, to deploy the majority of our resources to build out in the states that have legalized the product. We've also had success in selling GMP machinery to Australian and New Zealand companies, albeit 10-kilowatt scale. Important that we've been able to figure out the processes and the nuances of GMP. And of course, GMP machinery is more expensive. So we're making a larger margin on those machines based on the size of the contract, given the need for robust traceability and different componentry, which is just inherently more expensive. So some of the data that we were able to collect this past year in collaboration with our commercial partner, Gentle Dry Tech, who operates a mobile drying unit around the Pacific Northwest and Western United States. And the most recent U.S. MSO that decided to sign a license and buy a 120 kilowatt machine from us shows that after drying several different strains, employing the Terpene Max process, we retain between 30 and 50% more. So this cut and dry COA apples to apples comparison, which is part of the data that we're now using, obviously, to promote technology to other adopters. So Revworks, our toll manufacturing facility, had been delayed this past year primarily due to municipal permitting, but thankfully we're on the doorstep to starting commercial production. We'll have all of our machinery installed, which includes a 60 kilowatt large scale line, three 10 kilowatt lines, and some auxiliary machinery, seasoner, a pre-air dryer, and other things necessary for the applications that are under consideration for production at that plant. So we anticipate that, again, we'll start up in the early new year with full commercial production with a target of obtaining our SQF certification, safe quality food, which is an absolute necessity for engaging with the larger international CPG or consumer packaged goods companies. In the initial phase, we will engage with the small to medium-sized businesses in the pipeline and then convert a large portion of the manufacturing capacity in the summer, again, towards those bigger projects. So I summarized earlier that NutraDrive had a tough fiscal 21, more specifically the Q1 and Q2 were horrific, and then tried to recover through Q3, and we'll be announcing our Q4 numbers on the 15th of this month. That all being said, they're on the path to recovery and renewed growth. All the while, our licensing and royalty business absolutely, I think, I would say killed it in fiscal 21, the best ever financial performance in the history of that business unit. We were profitable. We signed the most new licenses that I mentioned. We recorded gross margins in excess of 45%. I think it's 49% actually. And we generated cash and maintained a very strong balance sheet. So there's no need to raise any additional capital at this point. We're fully funded to execute on our growth initiatives and looking forward to, again, delivering on the guidance that we provided for this fiscal year. I'm confident that with the new management at NutraDrive and the intensified collaboration between our two business units, we'll have both business units fully fit this fiscal. So as I mentioned, annual numbers come out on the 15th, and we will be holding an investor conference call the morning of the 16th to clarify anything for folks that have questions. So for this fiscal year, we have a few marquee targets. The first being continued to, in terms of obtaining those machine purchase orders, leverage our third-party machine resellers, which are domiciled throughout the globe, to help accelerate the pipeline conversion, and as well winning repeat purchase orders from several of our existing licensees, scaling up to large-scale 60 kilowatt or greater lines. Of the 10 machines that we targeted to close, 7 of those are prospectively from existing licensees. So this is not going out hunting and going through that sales process and the effort it takes to close those agreements. Those have already been set. It's all about market demand now. Second point, we hope to achieve at least 75% capacity utilization by the end of fiscal 22 for our Revworks tolling facility. 50% is the, call it break-even point for that business unit. And the revenue upside for toll manufacturing is not necessarily material in that $2.5 to $3 million could be anticipated. But again, that is a driver of further adoption of Rev broadly through in-house manufacture by licensed partners. And then the royalty growth, that's going to be critical. A lot of shareholders are getting impatient about how long it's been taking to see that ramp. And this past year was better than obviously the year before. But we are definitely cognizant about assisting where we can our partners to have intensified commercial success. And then I mentioned the U.S. market as the greatest near-term opportunity in leveraging our Terpene Max data. We have a number of companies who were very close to hopefully consummating, moving ahead. And so looking forward to speaking about that through the year. Turnaround NutraDrive, that's no secret. And then positive EBITDA for both business units in fiscal 22 is a goal for us. So just to wrap up, when we look at the investment proposition of EnWave, we do have a disruptive technology with a substantial competitive advantage, and we've proven it out commercially in some quite large, diversified, addressable markets. The monetization strategy, 49 licenses, I think that is less of a hurdle than it was 5 years ago, and that the clear value that we can show and the return on investment makes the royalty discussion become a small one in the scope of building these partnerships. We're also looking to, again, spin out or sell NutraDrive at some point, so that could have some unique upside, diversified from our standardized business, which is the royalty licensing aspect. And of course, we have a lot of opportunity in pharma and the blue sky piece via the GAIA partnership, which could yield or bear some fruit in the future, likely not for less than 3 to 5 years. We'll stop there and see that there is a question in the Q&A period. And the question is, what is your vision for the company for the next 12 months? So, and just summarizing our goals, the vision for the company includes turning around NutraDrive to get it back to sustained profitability and set up for growth, closing a minimum of 10 large-scale machines and 15 10-kilowatt machines, which will certainly create profitability within the company, and also scaling up several of our marquee partners, the household names that we always refer to. It's great that they're using our technology for product development, but now rubber needs to hit the road. We need to see them commit to larger capital expenditures and upsizing their manufacturing capabilities. And I think I'll also add, just on the Revworks side, having at least 3 to 4 anchor tenants, I'll call them, that are actively developing existing products that have been successful, or bringing new innovative products to market to prove out those business cases, which then hopefully we can leverage in multiple international jurisdictions through unique and standalone new licenses. Okay, with that and no other questions that I see, I'd like to say thanks to everyone for joining today, and feel free to reach out to myself or members of our team via our website, EnWave.net, that's ENWAVE.net, if you have questions. We have an open door policy, and we'll answer any queries that come our way. Thanks so much.